The first few minutes to settle in, meaning you could close your eyes and start to feel in the body and start to arrange the body for sitting. We want to find a balance between comfort and alertness. So upright generally is advised because reclined can bring on sleep. But if the body is uncomfortable, making it more comfortable by laying down or leaning back. If you're at home, you could sit in a comfy chair. I'm beginning to slow the breath down, maybe taking a few intentionally exaggerated breaths, breathing deeply into the belly, holding it briefly, and controlling the exhale long and slow. And those long exhalations, allowing yourself to feel the release physically, allowing things to begin to settle. Cultivate physical stillness to support mental stillness. So as you begin to settle the body, noting or noticing the state of the mind. And generally, this time of day, if we've had a busy day especially, you can feel the momentum of the thinking mind. You know, the mind always looking for the next stimulus, or the mind grinding on a problem, an issue, a feeling. So when we come to sit, the body settling and beginning to relax, same thing for the mind. We take the energy out of the mind by letting thoughts go, letting them be, not picking them up. Instead, kind of stepping back, observing the process as it unfolds. Noticing the breathing, natural breath. Notice when you're breathing more deeply. Every so often the body might take a deeper breath, longer. Noticing the sensations in and around the body, the tingling, the rise and fall of the chest or belly. So when we meditate, we're unhooking from manas, the conceptual mind, thinking process, projecting into the future, reliving the past. So we unhook from that and we hook in or connect into our direct experience here and now. We start looking for what is present, the feeling of the contact of the body with the ground. Sounds in the room around us. If we sit in this way, patient, observing, the body will settle more completely and the mind settle to more and more silence, quiet. But we can assist this with a few minutes of concentration practice here at the beginning of the sit. Today I'll offer a visualization of the breath as a ball of light. So finding the tail or root, the perineum, the base of the spine, somewhere in the bottom of the torso there. Visualize a glowing ball of light, golden or white light, or any color you like, if you're a visual person. You could have a sense of warmth or heat. And it can be any size, so something the size of a ping pong ball, something the size of a melon. Whatever's comfortable for the mind to kind of hold as an image. And we're going to connect this ball of light with the breath as we inhale, as the body inhales. So we're not going to start controlling the breath, but just with the natural breath. Imagine this ball of light ascends up the front of the spine to the crown of the head, top of the head. And on the exhale, it descends back down the center of the body to the tail. It might take some refinement. It might take a few breaths to figure out what size of ball is easiest for you to hold. And to kind of find that balance where you're not directing the breath, but the breath is directing the visualization. Not overworking this, not thinking too much about it or worrying about doing it correctly. It could be as simple as a kind of energetic feeling of rising up the spine on the inhalations and falling on the exhalations. And then if you're doing the visualization, let's adjust it, shortening the distance. So now from navel to throat, rising from navel to throat on the inhale, and descending from throat to belly on the exhale. And finally resting that sense of warmth or lightness at the center, the level of the heart. So resting the mind in stillness, the center of the heart, the center of the chest, but still attending to the movement of the energy of the breath. And around that, just generally open to the sensations of the body sitting, and the space in the body and around the body. equanimity or balance of mind. Sometimes the imagery used to help us understand is a mountain. So here you could connect with a sense of mountainness, kind of heaviness in the body, unmoving, the deep stillness of a mountain. You know, equanimity, we remain unaffected by the winds. In the case of a mountain, there's no storm that destroys it. It persists. On the other hand, we can think of equanimity as being so open and spacious and light, like the sky. Which is also unaffected by winds and storms. Could play with switching from a mountain-like energy, firm, solid, unmoving, to sky-like energy, open, clear, untouchable. You know, when our mind has equanimity and we are sky-like, that even when someone criticizes us, it just goes right through. It's a shift in our basis of imputation. Rather than identifying with our ordinary body and mind, our sense of self, me, mine, the story associated with the character me and all the roles I play. We shift our identity to awareness itself, to that abiding presence and consciousness that knows. Within that, all phenomena are arising. The self, the ordinary self arises, and other beings arise, and events appear. Feelings come and go. If we are identified with the sky-like nature of consciousness, presence, we remain unharmed by the actions and activities that are unfolding. And you could think of equanimity or open-hearted seeing, just like the other perfections, the other far-reaching attitudes, has this protective quality. Protective of what or from what? From suffering, from dissatisfaction, from struggle. Can notice only when I drop into my story, the story of me and my problems, is there suffering. Only when I'm identified as this body and this small self is there struggle. If I take a bigger view, mountain-like or sky-like, there's nothing personal happening. Over the last few minutes of the sit, to whatever extent you can rest in a kind of spaciousness, kind of balance, open-heartedness. And just rest. Shifting as you like, if you like. Stretching, adjusting. There's a few blankets left up there as well. The temperature's dropping quickly when the heat's off. We have the little fireplace going there behind Carolyn. You're warm, eh? That's blowing on your back, or you okay? Up higher than that, up above. No, lower. Do you feel it? Yeah. It's not much heat. We can turn the big heater on if people feel like they're going to get too cold. Anybody too cold yet? Okay. I won't check with you, Tim. You're a furnace. I brought my sweater. Good. So hopefully you found in the sitting there a sense of stillness. You know, sometimes we, I'm guiding this practice with the ball of light going up and down, and there's, endless varieties of these types of visualization practices that you can do, and there's whole traditions based around them that you can study, the chakra system, energy systems, and they're useful, they have a place, but it's not to be confused with, actual meditation, which is really much more like going to sleep but staying awake during it. you know meaning the conceptual mind and the busyness and the planning and the thinking settles, and just the light of awareness itself is perceiving. So we settle into stillness. We might still remain aware of the body sitting, but sometimes the body might kind of dissolve and we're just completely relaxed, and then a sound happens and we make contact with that, and sometimes we don't get to that. Sometimes we're just struggling the whole time, our knees hurt, or we can't believe somebody said that to us today, how dare they, and it's like we can't drop the story that's playing. So something like that visualization of the ball of light is helping us to direct our attention into something that's not that, right? It's not the drama of what happened today. It's not your worry about the future. And so it has this very effective way of gathering into what's here and now, so that our attention comes to rest in the body breathing, which is much more closer to actuality than the drama that's playing out in thought. Does that make sense? Yeah. But even these types of visualizations, we use them to get the mind to settle, and then we want to just rest in that settled space, the spaciousness and clarity of knowing itself. Yeah? I say it an awful lot because I think it's useful, but the most common place that you come across this when you're not intentionally trying to attain it by sitting in meditation is the moment when you wake up in the morning. As you've been sleeping, comfortable in your bed, whatever prompts it, you start to wake up, and there's a moment, if we're paying attention, there's a moment where it's like the lights come on, but we haven't connected with the story of me yet, right? And you usually don't realize that you're in that space until you do make that connection, right? Like, oh shit, I gotta send that email, or oh, the dog's scratching at the door, or whatever has captured our attention and brought us into that story of me, into the conceptual fabrication of story of my life, this whole play. There's a spot, a natural just clarity of the mind that's awake and aware prior to that, you could say. Yeah. So that's a good practice to have, is, I'm going to notice that tomorrow morning when I wake up, and then to kind of stay there. It's one of the reasons I think why it's recommended to sit right after you wake up. If you have time to meditate in the morning, or let me rephrase that, if you make time, because I think you could argue that we all have time. If it's a priority, we'll do it. So, give yourself 5 or 10 minutes after you wake up. Just sit up in bed, or, for myself, I like to get the coffee first and meditate on the aroma of the beans as a part of the practice. But that early morning mind, the mind's rested and probably most alert. And maybe you can kind of come into it naturally. It's also why Yoga Nidra, many of you have come and done Yoga Nidra, or we've done it on retreat before. Why it's so powerful is you're laying on your back, you're hearing the guided meditation, and then there's these periods of silence where you might drift right into dullness, into sleep. But then the voice, the person reading the Yoga Nidra or guiding the Yoga Nidra, their voice brings you back out. And you can kind of play with that space between sleep and wakefulness. And you can recognize, without having to pick up the story of your life, me, myself, and all my problems, you can just be that awareness, following the script from the Yoga Nidra, or just noticing the space around you. So, excuse me. I said all of that as a way to, bring some understanding to what it is we're doing when we practice. We're really not doing anything, but there's some doing that we do to get to doing nothing. Yeah. So equanimity is the technical, or the most often way that upekkha, which is the Pali word, is translated. So this is the ninth of the 10 far-reaching attitudes. And I really went out on a limb here. I have no business giving a new translation to the word, but I did. Instead of calling it equanimity, because I find that equanimity it doesn't have, equanimity seems, what's the word? Kind of stodgy. It seems kind of unrelatable. It doesn't have that quality of heart that I think equanimity, the attitude of equanimity has. So this is why I've decided to say, let's call it open-hearted seeing, because there's a kind of natural joy in that stillness. There's a kind of natural ease and contentment, especially in relation to what we normally experience, which is this kind of tightness and a constant sense of dissatisfaction, never getting comfortable. But when the mind is in this space of equanimity, there's a lightheartedness and an open-heartedness to it. So synonyms for equanimity or open-hearted seeing also are dispassion and unaffected knowing. So there's kind of two things going on. There's the quality of seeing, open-hearted seeing, the observation of equanimity, and then the openness of it, or sometimes the mountain-like quality, the immovability of it. Equanimity, you can also think like that equalness, like balance, right? So equanimity is, we're not swayed one way or the other, completely balanced. Oh, and there you go. So the characteristic of open-hearted seeing is unwavering balance of mind, rooted in insight. So rooted in the other 9 qualities. So rooted in truthfulness, rooted in energy, rooted in generosity, because these are different types of insights that we can hold. But also, or maybe primarily or most essentially, rooted in wisdom, rooted in the clarity that knows interdependence or emptiness, which is what we'll talk about next week, this wisdom insight. Which, as a part of the meditation that we just did, is that understanding that we're actually, although we're ordinarily kind of drawn in and captivated and held by I am Heather, or I am Jane, or I am Nicholas, and I'm this many years old, and I'm this gender, and I like this and I don't like that, and I'm a an artist, or I'm a mother, all the roles, all the ways that we identify me. Yeah. So that's not wisdom. That's the opposite of wisdom, is that holding on to the characteristics of the ordinary self, the relative truth of us. So those things are all true, but they're not the whole truth, because the whole truth, which maybe you got a taste of in the meditation, is that we are able to observe all of that unfolding. And if we're observing it, then we're not it, right? So if you can see or observe, if you can know your body, then you're not your body. You're something that's observing your body, right? If you can see and know your thoughts as they're coming and going, yeah, then you're not your thoughts. You're the thing that is observing them. You're what is aware of them. Okay? So in the context of the meditation, it's that like kind of sky-like quality. I had a teacher, I remember the moment that he said, it was a teacher from England, a monk, and he said, we have this idea like our mind is somewhere inside of our body looking out. But it's more like we're inside of our mind. That all of the phenomenological world, everything that is in existence is within the mind, yourself included. So within your mind, within awareness, is this room and all the people in the room. Yeah. And when you get a taste of that, there's a kind of freedom in it, and a kind of, one of the other words for it is emptiness. You're not a thing, and you're not a singular thing. You're that which knows the appearance of things. So equanimity is the quality of enlightened mind that is able to hold that insight without shifting, without moving from it. And it, like the other perfections, it's something we can develop in this, we kind of train in it. We have to get a generic concept of what it is and sort of move towards it, but then it becomes more and more clear. So same thing with all of the practices. So truthfulness, which we did in the third period, the third 10-day period, we start to get more honest about things, or more truthful, more clear. And that's something that's kind of a never-ending thing. We can always get a little more truthful. We can always sort of uncover some place where there's deception, or we can shine a light on some part of our mind where we're not being fully honest. So the same thing with our understanding of wisdom and with equanimity. With equanimity, we can develop more and more balance of mind. I pointed to this in the meditation with the example of, somebody criticizes us. Yeah? If we are really trapped in the confusion, not very much wisdom is operating, then we're going to be really holding tightly to the self. And when they criticize us, oh my God, like it hurts. Like our gut hurts, like we've been kicked. How could they say that to us? And we become reactive. We want to harm them back, so we're contracted and stuck and reactive. And when we get reactive and kind of counterattacking, then it ripples out, and then they're attacking back. And then this is the mess that we're in, is this like play of action and reaction that is escalating. And then sometimes we can calm it down, but then it comes back up. And depending on how much wisdom we have operating in our mind, how much clarity we have, we might be constantly involved in this sort of drama. It's just like day after day of relentless stress and confusion. But then in our conventional world, if we don't have teachings like this, what do? We have the weekend, or we have vacation, you know? And a vacation is a nice analogy, I think, for this type of practice. Uh, for myself, I remember at one point thinking, yeah, the aim of my practice is to create a life I don't need to take a break from, you know, to have the kind of mind that's comfortable and on vacation all the time. You know, beachside, feet up. Do you say beachside, oceanside? Depends, I guess, on if you're swimming or on your towel. That lightness of mind is actually available all the time. But instead of packing a suitcase and getting away from everyone, all your problems, you recognize that you're not the self you think you are, and you don't have the problems you think you have. You're just identified with them. You learn to not identify with them, and there's no problem. Everything is unfolding. And it has this equanimity to it, meaning it's of equal value. Something good happens, awesome. Something bad happens, awesome. Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm just dithering here on whether to tell the story about good karma, bad karma, and I think I will. So, um, so this is a story that from the Tibetan tradition, and I think it comes because you know, the people in that part of the world, in the Himalayas, they live in nomadic tribes, you know, up in the mountains there, and so the story is that there's a man that lives in the mountains there, and he has a horse. Yeah, a horse is very valuable. He's got a few horses, let's say. I can't remember. But the point is that the horse is a lot of wealth in that context. And one day the horse runs away. And all of the people in the tribe or in the village, they say, your horse ran away. Oh my God, your horse ran away. And he says, good karma, bad karma doesn't matter. I'm just going to be happy. So he didn't bother with it. He had this equanimity with respect, or open-hearted seeing with respect to the having a horse, not having a horse doesn't matter. And then a few weeks later, a few months later, the horse came back. It was a female horse. It came back. It was pregnant. Now he's got two horses. And the people in the village are like, oh my God, you're so lucky. And he said, good karma, bad karma doesn't matter. I'm just going to be happy. I'm just going to be peaceful. Yeah. So he's displaying equanimity with respect to the conditions. And the story goes on. There's a number of verses to it. Another one is, you know, he's got a son. He's got his only son who's helps him with the horses, and the son breaks his leg. Oh, and everybody around him's like, oh, now he can't help you. What are you going to do? It's going to be so hard for you. And he said, good karma, bad karma doesn't matter. Just be happy. And then while the son is infirm with his leg, you know, broken, can't do any work, the army comes through and takes all the men his age. But he can't go because his leg's broken. Oh, you're so lucky. You know, they're saying to the father, and the father says, good karma, bad karma, doesn't matter. I'm just going to be happy. I'm just going to accept. I'm just going to be open-hearted, relaxed. Yeah. So you can see this play out in your own life. Oh, they broke up with me. I'll never be happy again. And then, you know, a year later, thank God they broke up with me. And what was I thinking? Yeah, now I'm with somebody much more suitable, or now I'm alone and I really needed alone time, you know? So all of the events in our life have this quality of not having any characteristic from their own side. They are just events that are happening, and it depends on the point of view you take and whether it's singular and constricted or whether it's open and even, spacious. Yeah. That's going to determine the peacefulness of your mind. Yeah. So equanimity, open-hearted seeing or equanimity, it appears in this context of the 10 perfections. It also appears in the 7 factors of enlightenment, which we're going to do on retreat in January, the sleepaway retreat over at Jericho. It also appears as one of the 4 immeasurables. So when I say it appears in these different places, what I'm highlighting is that it's one of the feature mental attitudes that is trained on the path. It's an important one. And Buddha taught it in different contexts, in the different teachings, different baskets of teachings. So I wanted to offer you, in addition to its placement on this list, I wanted to talk about the 4 immeasurables tonight. Equanimity is one of them. And loving kindness, which is also one of the 10 perfections, is also one of the 4 immeasurables. So the 4 immeasurables, also called, or in Sanskrit, the 4 Brahma Viharas. Brahma meaning divine, and Viharas meaning the area or abode. So it's where the divine dwell. Brahma Vihara. These 4 states of mind are considered the kind of exclusive domain of the Buddhas, of enlightened or awakened energy. The meaning that once one's mind is fully trained, fully awake, what you do is you kind of move through these 4 states. You're always in one of these 4 mental states. So loving kindness is that metta, that natural affection that we have for ourselves and for others. The heart of the 10 days of, or 10 days, 100 days of care is this loving kindness. So every day, if you're doing the 100 days of care, you're writing a phrase of loving kindness. I am enough, or I am safe, I am whole, whatever your mantra is. That's this quality of loving kindness. It is completely unconditional. It's love without any strings, without any restriction. It's that feeling, you can feel it in the heart. If you've ever had like a strong feeling of gratitude and love and affection and care. So it's the perfection of loving kindness. It's like there's no blemish in it at all. There's no condition at all. There's no hook. There's no other quality but love. So that, the mind appearing as that. If suffering appears, then compassion arises. So that's the second abode, or second Brahma Vihara. So loving kindness is the natural state. When suffering appears, love turns into compassion. Love is compassion. Compassion is simply a wish to remove the suffering. Yeah. So compassion, if we can, it has an active quality. So we have an impulse to protect wherever we see harm. Sympathetic joy whenever good things happen. So loving kindness is there all the time. Equanimity is there all the time, but I'll get to it. So loving kindness is there. Suffering happens, compassion arises, or the enlightened awareness becomes compassionate. Something good happens, joy arises, sympathetic joy, or mudita. So resonant joy. It's not in this list, but it is in the list for the 7 factors of enlightenment, and it's a really great practice to get to know and to enjoy. It counters envy, jealousy, because when we practice joy, we look for good things that are happening for other people, and we're like, yeah, that's awesome. We allow, and resonant joy, you think of like drawing a violin bow on a string and how it resonates. So the resonance is the heart, feeling that swelling in the heart of joy for somebody else experiencing. We can also feel it for ourselves, but it's safer to practice with others because we're already so self-concerned. It can be very confused. But eventually we practice it for ourselves and others without distinction. So, and then the fourth is that equanimity. So loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity. Equanimity, just that open, clear seeing. And you could think all of these are arising at the same time. So equanimity and loving kindness in particular are kind of there all the time. The appearance of suffering causes compassion to arise. The experience of good fortune causes joy to arise. Beautiful, right? Yeah. Excuse me. Where are we at? Oh, good. I got time to talk a little bit more. And then I will give it up and we can chat. I can answer questions and we can have a little discussion. So the final thing that I wanted to offer, it's also in the book. And this is a very practical teaching called the 8 Worldly Winds. Yeah. So 8 worldly winds. I briefly mentioned it in the meditation when I was saying you're like a mountain and the wind doesn't move you, or you're like the sky and the wind doesn't harm you. It just is something that's appearing. So the 8 worldly winds, sometimes called the 8 worldly concerns, they're 2 sets of 4. So 4 sets of 2, 4 pairs of concerns that we have. So on the, and the 2 sides are we are either attached or we're averse, right? So we're attached to gain, right? We want to acquire whatever we desire. We want to have it. We want to gain it. When we're getting the horseback that got pregnant, that's a gain. When we lose the horse, that's a loss. So we're attached to gain and we're averse to loss. Mm-hmm. The second pair is fame and disrepute. So we want people to think that we're nice or good. We want to have a good reputation. We want people to like us. We're attached to that. This confuses our motives sometimes. Sometimes we don't do what's actually the most wise thing to do because we're managing our reputation. We want to control what other people think of us. We want them to look at us and think, yeah, we've got it together, or think that we're awesome, or whatever our story is. So we're attached to receiving recognition and enjoying good reputation, and we're averse to not being liked, disrepute. We don't want to be criticized. We don't want to have a bad reputation. We don't want people to think whatever. We don't want them to think about us. Yeah. The third pair is praise and blame. This is one of my favorites. I will work for praise. We feel that it's like, yeah, I always think of like a little puppy getting its belly rubbed, like praise and good feeling. If somebody says, oh, you're really good at that. Oh yeah, we eat that up, right? We're attached to the feeling that comes from being praised. And blame, we don't want. Yeah, we don't want to be told that we're the problem, or that something we did was wrong. We don't want to be criticized, judged, or meet with disapproval. And the fourth pair is pleasure and pain. Yeah, this one's probably closest to the bone, as you say, because this is physical and mental, right? We enjoy what is pleasurable. We want more of it. And we do not want to suffer. Yeah. This is like when I say it's closer to the bone, it's closer to the physicality of our experience. And it's harder the older we get, it's harder to keep the body comfortable. The body's achy, it's more easily injured. And it's a problem because it's the nature of the body to get old and get sick. And so if you're not going to be happy at those times, you're going to have a lot of unhappy times. Right? If the mind can remain balanced, open-hearted, wise, kind of dispassionate about what's happening for our individual character, then pain and pleasure, or pardon me, in particular pain, we can be with. Yeah? We can endure it, maybe with some combination of the other qualities, you know, patience, letting be, equanimity. It's very powerful if we can sit in equanimity with when we're experiencing pain. So you might notice this the next time that you're sick. Yeah, it's difficult for me. I'm sorry for coughing. I'm probably coughing right into the microphone for people on Zoom. So that's what I had prepared to talk about for equanimity tonight. What do you think? Praise me. No, I mean, what do you think? Like, make sense? Questions? Objections?